What's up, guys? Here are my predictions for UFC Fight Night happening in Sao Paulo, Brazil this Saturday. I'm not gonna lie, not the best card, not something that's gonna blow your hair back, but always willing to tune in because these cards that go under the radar tend to be the best cards, and the last several fight nights as a collective have been amazing. Now, of course, a lot of Brazilians, frankly, a lot of veterans on this card, from Renan Barão to Francisco Trinaldo, still doing the thing and still looking amazing out there. Sergio Moraes, Charles Oliveira, even though he's young, he has a lot of experience and he's finally making his way up the lightweight division and even poses a very interesting style for some of the grapplers of this division, notably Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? It'll be spectacular to see him actually compete against the guys like Tony Ferguson and compete against those top tier lightweights. And of course, we do have Shogun, Jacare, Jan Blachowicz, a lot of veterans, a lot of experience on this card, which is something you don't normally see for fight nights. You usually see a lot of noob Saibots all over the screen. But we're going to start with Warlley Alves versus Randy Brown. Two fighters in different positions in their career, but they're both trying to make it up the welterweight division. Warlley Alves has been in the UFC for a pretty long time, and he was known as one of the most promising prospects of the welterweight division years back, but he's still in the same position. He's still in the same situation to crack it to the top 15, to get that big win of his. Yes, he beat Colby Covington, which is a fight a lot of people don't know about, but that was before Colby was even known at all. In 2015, which was Colby's fourth fight in the UFC, his lone loss in his career due to a guillotine, and that is what Warlley Alves is known for. Not just the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but specifically that guillotine choke is his go-to choke, and he always goes for it if you give him the neck. Now, Randy Brown isn't much of a wrestler. He's a very tall fighter, so it's going to be very interesting to see if Warlley Alves could apply a guillotine possibly here and there, or unless he goes for a takedown himself and works his way on top and looks for that guillotine, maybe creates some sort of a scramble. He is the better grappler than Randy Brown. That's going to be 100% without a doubt. And we do know Warlley Alves is a dangerous striker. Look at his last fight against Sergio Moraes, who's also fighting on this card, able to knock him out in the third round with an uppercut. And he is a 3-time Brazilian kickboxing champion, so he definitely does have the credentials when it comes to the striking, especially for mixed martial arts, against a young guy in Randy Brown. You know, he definitely has the power, he has a killer instinct, he has very fluid footwork, his movement resembles a lot of Anderson Silva. It's just his punches and kicks not so much. He's not so much of a sniper. He actually attacks a lot more like a Jacare Souza than an Anderson Silva. Looks for the big right hand, looks for those devastating kicks. Really a one-punch fighter unless he crowds you against the cage, and he wants to be the aggressor. He wants to be the ones pushing forward so he can work the takedowns with his striking. But striking with a longer and taller Randy Brown, who is more of a sniper, who looks to use his distance and reach to get the better of his opponent, and I believe that's where this fight's going to play. Warlley Alves is trying to make his way on the inside, and Randy Brown is really good at keeping distance. But if Randy Brown keeps moving backwards, he's going to eventually hit the cage. Then Warlley Alves, his takedowns, he doesn't normally go to them, but we'll see if Randy Brown has upped his wrestling game to stop those takedowns and make it his kind of fight. But I do think the leg kicks of Warlley Alves is going to make Randy Brown move back a little bit. The punches, I think, are going to miss a lot unless the leg kicks are working for Alves, or even the body kicks, actually. Switch kicks to the body are going to be key, as well as right round kicks to the leg. It would be intelligent if Alves works off the jab after that, not trying to just load up on his right hand, load up on a big left hook, but measure with the jab and make sure you have that pinpoint right hand ready confidently, right? You don't want to just throw it out there every single time, and then Randy Brown's going to download that data, pick you apart at a distance with his jab, with his front kicks. So my prediction for this fight, I am going to go with Warlley Alves. I think he has too much firepower, more experience in the UFC, and if it gets to the ground, I think it's going to be total domination. So I'm going to go with Warlley Alves. I could see a finish, but I'm going to go by a decision. I think Randy Brown has really hit another level in his game, and you especially saw that in his last fight against Brian Barberena. And then we go to the co-main event, Mauricio Shogun versus Paul Craig, the younger comeback fighter versus the experienced, former champion, powerful Shogun. And even to this day, Shogun delivers that power. He's not as fast as he used to be. His reflexes aren't what they used to be. He's taking a lot of damage. Chin isn't what it used to be, but even in that Jan Blachowicz fight, it really surprised me how many shots he took from a powerful striker in Jan Blachowicz. Now, Paul Craig isn't a devastating striker. He usually throws kicks, but they're just meant to disrupt his opponent, and he wants to make his way to the ground and eventually use his submissions. 92% of his 12 wins are by submission. 81% of the 26 wins from Shogun are knockouts. And the stats are true in this one. Shogun's going to look to stay on the feet. Paul Craig's going to look to get it to the ground. And even still, Shogun is pretty capable on the ground. I know he got submitted by Chael Sonnen with that guillotine, and I think a lot of people, especially him, did not expect Chael Sonnen to go that route. Sonnen usually doesn't go for submissions in that manner, and I think that just caught Shogun Rua off guard. In this fight, he knows what Craig's gonna do. He knows Craig is very good with triangle chokes, very slippery off his back. In his last fight, he even submitted Vinicius Moreira, who is an amazing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist, and he did it only in the first round by a rear naked choke, his first rear naked choke in his entire career. So you know that Paul Craig will go for all different kind of things, but his triangle choke is his main weapon. He is good with guillotines, he is good with Darce chokes, he's very long and lanky. But here are a couple problems with Paul Craig. One, he's not a knockout artist. He's not going to be able to test the chin of Shogun like other fighters have in the past. He's not much of a striker. Yeah, he's pretty quick on his feet. He throws some decent kicks, pretty flexible, but there's not too much power in what he throws. He doesn't have great takedowns. He's only been successful in 19% of his takedowns. And even from those, he usually tries to go for trips. He will drive into the cage and try to work for double legs and stuff like that, but the trips are usually what works. Shogun Rua is way ahead of the game of Paul Craig when it comes to that kind of style and facing those kind of fighters. And a big thing is Paul Craig is not great at breaking your posture when he's on his back. This is what allows fighters to ground and pound him, uncharacteristically for a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist. Usually they're very good at breaking posture, working for submissions, not allowing their opponent to do anything to land damage or even attempt their own submissions or try to get up even when they're on top when it's too dangerous. Look at Fabricio Verdum, Jacare Souza like in the main event. They are masters at breaking your posture, and that is why you're not able to land too many strikes unless you're like a Yoel Romero, a silver medalist in the Olympics, who has probably the strongest base in the UFC. That is something Shogun Rua is nowhere near. Right? But Shogun has devastating ground and pound. He is very good at passing the guard, and he's very good at getting a mount. And from that mount position, he has displayed some horrific ground and pounding in the UFC. And that is something that's going to be very risky for Paul Craig. So my prediction for this fight, to some people's surprise, maybe, I'm going to go with Shogun Rua. Again, he has the knockout power to hurt Paul Craig. Craig has been knocked down before, and Shogun still has a devastating right overhand. He has good leg kicks to disrupt Craig as well, especially that long reach, long stance that he keeps on his opponent. And I think he's going to put a lot of pressure on Craig, and I think Craig might even pull guard in this fight because nothing else is working. So I think he might pull guard as Shogun Rua works his way in, which he usually likes to do. Shogun is not a long striker, even though he has a 76-inch reach, the same as Paul Craig. He likes to strike on the inside. His punches are a lot shorter than other guys with 76-inch reach. And from there, I do think Craig is going to pull guard. I think he's going to try to work his way to get it to the ground, scramble a little bit, and I think Shogun's going to be on top, even if it hits the ground. And I think he's going to see the submissions coming. Even with age, your skill doesn't deteriorate. It never declines. It's just your reflexes, your speed, and stuff like that. This is why you see many old-timers in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game. They're usually doing very well. And I think Shogun Rua, at 37 years old still, is going to be able to defend the submissions, work his way past the guard, get some ground and pound shots in there, work his way to the mount, and I think he's going to win by a TKO in the third round. And then we go to the main event, and by far the biggest fight of this entire card. Jan Blachowicz versus Ronaldo Jacare Souza. The most complete fighters on this card, probably. Both can wrestle, both have amazing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, both have great and dangerous striking. Jan isn't as much of a striker, even though he has the knockout on Luke Rockhold. Even though he likes to strike with many of his opponents, he's a lot more of a grappler than he is a striker, which speaks to his skills. I mean, he has great striking. He body kicked Latifi. He knocked out Luke Rockhold on the feet. Even against Jared Cannonier, a devastating puncher, able to work him a little bit. But everything he does is very vanilla, and that's not an insult at all. I mean, that's very good. He sticks to the basics and fundamentals perfectly when it comes to the striking, kickboxing, when it comes to the ground with his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, even when it comes to the wrestling, which isn't his strong suit, he still has a 52% accuracy with takedowns. That is actually higher than the average. Now, is he going to work the wrestling against Jacare? I do not think he should. Even though how good of a grappler he is, even though how good his arm bars are, even though how good his pressure is on top, even though how good he is at positioning, Jacare trumps him at every given angle, at every given turn. We're talking about one of the absolute greatest BJJ artists to ever compete in MMA in Jacare Souza, and it has definitely translated. 54% of his wins are by submission, and we rarely ever see him on his back. We have seen him once against Yoel Romero, and even then he was flopping all around and very hard to control for even Romero. Romero has great control on top, very strong base, and he had a bit of a hard time stopping Jacare from going for all of these kind of submissions. And we're talking about Jacare Souza, who was just stunned and dropped by a spinning back fist from Romero. And he's going for these kind of things. It's just instinct. It just clicks for him. He's automatically reacting. He's not thinking about anything. And when you get to that level, it's a very dangerous Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist in Jacare Souza. So I believe this fight shouldn't be hitting the ground unless Jacare initiates it. And I think he will. He will be a much smaller fighter, only walking around at 213 pounds, which is very light for a 205er. And this is why Jacare's never went to 205 before. Jan Blachowicz is a big guy at 205. You saw that against Luke Rockhold. So even if he goes and tries to wrestle with Jan Blachowicz, the size of Jan is going to play a big factor in stopping those takedowns, being the stronger fighter in the exchanges. And we know Jan is very good at exiting from the clinch. You saw that against Rockhold. You've seen him many times before. He is willing to throw punches with great form, perfect form, as Jacare's chin. Jacare's older, 39 years old. He's taken a lot of damage in his career, a lot more than Jan has. Yes, Jan was knocked out recently by Thiago Santos, but the accumulation of damage in his career isn't near what Jacare has experienced. So will this be a striking match? And if it is a striking match, how is that going to go down? Well, I think whoever pressures who will dictate a lot of how this fight is going to go, because both these guys are not good on the back foot. I would say Jan is a lot better than Jacare on the back foot because he's more used to it, especially like you saw in his fight with Alexander Gustafsson, pressured heavily in that fight. Jacare, though, the thing why Jacare is not as good on the back foot as Jan is because he loads up on the right hand all the time, and it's very obvious when you're moving backwards. Jacare's main punch is that right overhand. He's very precise with it, he times it very well, but when you're moving back, the power in it diminishes greatly. You don't have that front foot explosion like you do when you're moving forward, which is why you never see Jacare pressure that much. Whenever you see him pressured is when he's getting hurt, like in his fight with Robert Whittaker, for example. And when you look at his fight with Weidman, he was doing worse when he was backing up. When he was moving forward, he was actually landing. Now, Jan does have a very good chin, but will he take a 205 Jacare right overhand to the jaw? I don't think he's going to take that well, because as we've seen historically, those lighter guys that move up, they do usually carry more power in the higher weight classes, and that is something you cannot underestimate. Jan Blachowicz cannot look at this fight with Jacare and say, I'm fighting such a smaller fighter in there. You can never look at it that way, because we've seen it time and time again. Those smaller guys go up, and they tend to be like the stronger or more powerful fighter, and definitely the faster fighter. So I do think Jacare is going to bring a little bit more speed, which is generally not something he brings into fights, but going up 20 pounds against Jan, who isn't a fast fighter at all, might play a little bit more of a factor for himself to work with something new that he doesn't normally have. The speed in his punches are going to be greater, the speed in his kicks are going to be greater. He has a very good switch high kick, he has amazing body shots. I mean, that left uppercut to the body is precise, and he gets you thinking up high from the right overhand. He's digging to your body and working your cardio, and it is a 5-round fight. I think the card is going to be relatively the same. I think Jacare being so small at 205, it's not going to hurt him that much moving up a division, and Jan has always had good cardio, so I don't think either are going to really tire out in this fight. But here's the thing, here goes to my prediction. It is a very, very tough fight to call. It's a lot more even in every aspect of the game than any other fight on this card. The striking is very even. Jan has more variety. Jacare is more powerful. On the ground, Jacare will have the advantage overall, but Jan has good takedown defense to stop it from going there. It's such a tough fight to call. And neither of these two have really good footwork to confuse the other. We have seen guys like Kelvin Gastelum and Robert Whittaker confuse Jacare with their footwork, with their movement, with their explosiveness. Jan doesn't have that, but Jan is a very similar thing as well. He plods a lot, and if you're able to have that kind of movement like a Thiago Santos, that throws him off his game as well. So a lot of the exchanges are going to be right in front of each other's face, and that could be very explosive. And who would win that kind of battle? I think Jacare would win that kind of battle. You know what? My prediction for this fight, I can be wrong, it can go the other way, but I'm going to go with Jacare Souza. He's going to be fast. He's not a big guy to cut a lot of weight for this weight class. He has a lot of power. I think he's more devastating of a puncher than Jan is. I think he has more dangerous Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think he attempts takedowns a lot more, but they could be shut down by Jan. That's the biggest thing, and Jan is a better wrestler than Jacare, I believe. The biggest thing why I'm going to go with Jacare is because he could pressure Jan back, and if he pressures Jan back, that right overhand I think eventually is going to land, or even a left hook. The left high kick is going to be in play. There's a lot of weapons from Jacare that are going to be in play, and I'm very confident that Jacare is going to be the one that's going to push Jan back eventually. I don't know if it's going to be initially, but eventually it's going to happen, and eventually that's when Jacare is going to be able to land his shots. I think he's going to feel out the first round, see how he feels at 205, see how he feels against a much bigger fighter, and see his tools, see all the basics, see what his timing is like. That's going to be the most important thing for Jacare. And after that, capitalize with his pressure, with his power, fire back at Jan, get him to move a little bit, and then Jacare could find his range and find his space. So I'm going to go with Jacare Souza. I'm actually going to go by a decision for this one. I think he's going to win 3 rounds out of the 5. And then let's look at the odds here. So Isabella versus Lipski is very interesting how they have Lipski as a 3-1 favorite, even though Lipski does underperform in fights, especially against grapplers. 3-1, I don't agree. I do think she will win, but 3-1 is a bit much. Very sad to see where Renan Barão is in his career, man. I think he's like on a 4-loss streak right now, and I do expect him to lose badly in this one. Now, the prospect fight is a very interesting one when you look at the betting odds, and that is Ricardo Ramos versus Eduardo Gagori is so lopsided in the odds. I'm actually kind of surprised. I know a lot of people are very high on Ramos. Very promising, but Garagori is undefeated. He's a good grappler. He's good fundamentally. He brings a lot to the game. Huge featherweight as well. And amazing submissions. If it goes to the ground, it's going to be very interesting how that's going to play out. If you think Ramos is going to win, I 100% can agree with that. I just think a lot of people are sleeping on Garagori. I mean, he quit being a lawyer as well, so that's a different kind of commitment, right? And I agree with all of the other odds. I'm very surprised. Usually they're all over the place. Just a couple, I think, here. So I hope you guys enjoyed the predictions, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe. My next video is going to be the podcast. It's going to come out tomorrow, so be looking out for that before the fights. And again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.